Well, Jeff, thank you so much for joining us here. I know things have been quite hectic for you, but I wanted to just take a few minutes to learn a little bit about Habilitat and see if there's ways that some of our listeners can connect with you and help and support what Habilitat is doing. I figure at first I start with who is who is Habilitat servicing and helping it, and what is the mission of your organization?
So Habilitat was founded in 1971 here in Hawaii by a gentleman named Vinny Marino, and he had a vision to create a program that addressed both substance use issues and prepared people coming out of either on their way to incarceration or coming out from incarceration to prepare them for the workforce and to teach them how to be responsible, contributing members of our society. So we're coming up on our 50th year of operation at our Kaneohe facility. We are
Wow.
a nonprofit 501c3. We have a population of about 100. We're actually licensed for 150. We keep it around 100 participants. And basically, we do substance use treatment. We do, and then a whole bunch of other services. So, Habilitat is what we consider a recovery community. We bring all the different services that are needed to transform someone's life. We bring them to bear right there at our property, and that includes stuff like workforce development, parenting classes, education, people that don't have their high school diploma, computer training, life skills management, anger management, all kinds of different things that are geared towards taking someone from a place of non-resourceful coping skills to where they can compete in today's marketplace and manage their families and manage their employment and whatnot. So we are a 501c3. We don't have any contracts with the state or federal government. Our founder decided that if we were going to be teaching self-reliance and independence, we really needed to practice it. So basically, if you did all the math, we're saving the people of Hawaii, the taxpayers of Hawaii, about $7 million a year because we're dealing with people that would be incarcerated otherwise. And we do it all by our own merit. So we have Habilitat has multiple different social enterprises. So we have a construction company, a catering company, a food truck. We do Christmas tree sales. We do a whole bunch of different things. And all those programs are curriculum-based programs that are, to teach people a trade or a skill set that will then in turn transfer to a living wage. The program is long. It's hard. We get a lot of people say, "Oh, Habilitat's the tough program in Hawaii," and it is. We're dealing with a tough crowd, and we certainly make no apologies for that. But it is a full, life transformation type program. So basically, because of all this stuff that's happening with the virus, we had to make a decision. We made the decision to shut down all of our outside businesses to protect our population, obviously, and that's taken a huge toll
Yeah.
financially because we've always generated our own revenue rather than depend on government agencies and things like that.
Right.
Every year we have this big luau at Kualoa Ranch. It's a luau auction and benefit concert. We had to cancel that or at least postpone indefinitely
Hmm.
until we can figure out a safe way to do that. And then our construction company is basically shut down as well. So, yeah, we're feeling the brunt of this like everybody else. So does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm on several different points of this. I was really glad to hear you explain these things because I, being not as familiar with Habilitat, only knew about the Christmas tree sales. I've
Right.
in the past purchased Christmas trees, and I never truly went into figuring out, well, what is Habilitat all about? I just thought, oh, they have these Christmas trees, and I know it goes to a good cause of some sort. So I'm
Right.
really glad to hear of all of the things that you're doing. And what I love about what you described with your program is a lot of the times we hear about, people who go into incarceration and stuff. We never think about, well, what happens after? Like,
Right.
we just assume you go to jail, you ship up, and you go back out and you're good. But a lot of the people who go through incarceration, they don't realize that they don't have the resources
Oh,
to, become self-resourceful, know the skills, and they end up going right back to where they started because of that. So to see that you've built
right.
these programs to help give them the resources and the tools, and also the self-confidence and support, I mean, I think it's fantastic.
Yeah. So a lot of the public has a very limited understanding, obviously, of how the whole justice system works.
Yeah.
And we've seen lots of calls recently with the uptick in crime, especially the violent crime. Just lock everybody up, lock everybody up.
Right.
And while I sympathize with that sentiment, the reality is the way that the American legal system works is they're gonna, if they do go to jail, they're eventually going to get out.
Mhm.
Unless it's a very, very heinous crime or whatever. But the vast majority of people that end up in jail or in prison are going to be there for maybe a year, maybe a few years at the most, and then they're going to be released. And the real question is, well, what happens between the time they're incarcerated and the time they're released to prepare them to not uh, end up reoffending? We have across the country, here in Hawaii as well, we have a huge rate of recidivism. And the word recidivism, some people don't know what that means, but basically it means to reoffend. So somebody
Hmm.
that gets arrested, gets out, and then gets arrested again and has to go back, that's recidivating. There's a lot of science out about how to reduce recidivism. So many years ago, our founder was really kind of visionary. He envisioned something much more than just drug treatment or substance use treatment,
Yeah.
more of a complete overhaul. So there are certain factors that have to be addressed for offenders to reduce the rate of reoffending, and that's all built into Habilitat. Unfortunately, um, they call that reentry programming. So when somebody gets put in jail and before they come out of jail, there needs to be reentry programming to prepare them to reenter society. Unfortunately, our justice system doesn't do a very good job of, they do a great job of punishing people or whatever,
Yeah.
but for substance issues, punishment based things don't really deter substance use.
Right.
But there are plenty of things that do. Unfortunately, the jail systems across the country, they just don't do a very good job of reentry programming. And statistically speaking, that kind of programming actually is much more effective outside of the penitentiary or the jails than inside. So, hence the reason Habilitat does what it does.
I I used to own a store, a retail store, right outside of Kalihi, and it was right along the bus line from OCCC.
Oh
And a
yeah,
lot of the times, the people who had just gotten released would stop by into the store, and I'd have conversations with them. And a lot of the times, and this was about 10, 15 years ago, but a lot of the times they never necessarily had a plan or even felt excited about the future. It was a lot of fear and concern
right.
because they didn't have things in place for them to at least even know what next steps to take. They just kind of like, here your stuff, here's a bus, go ahead and jump on. And so I love what your program is doing is providing all of these resources and opportunities to allow them this opportunity to one have hope, a plan, and build skills. I think this is so important that I think especially for the public who's always just about like how come we can't do better. Well, these are ways that we can do better,
Exactly,
right?
exactly.
So you're
Yeah.
mentioning that because you had to shut down a lot of the outside businesses that a lot of your uh, the people are working through during this crisis. What is happening now for them who were relying on this work and doing this part of the
So
program?
yeah, so well, we made the decision to put everybody in isolation. We're working with Dr. Scott Miskovich and the Castle Group both to make sure that anybody that comes in is tested prior to coming in, and they've helped us develop protocols to keep everybody safe. In terms of the work details, well, we can't do anything off our property right now. So what we're doing, we're continuing training, but we've kind of shifted gears and now we're doing projects on our property. So like the
Oh,
other day, they built a brick wall. We're still doing the culinary training. We have a culinary department. They're getting ready to do an irrigation system on our property. So, basically we just, we're not earning revenue from it, but we're still doing the training and we're still doing all the therapies and all that stuff. So the program continues. It's just a little bit more limited in scope of what we can do in terms of workforce development. But, we have a shop on our property in Kaneohe, so we can still do welding training, obviously computer training. There's certain parts of the of the training programs that we can continue on site. We are probably one of the largest installers of vinyl fence on the island of Oahu. Obviously, we can't do much of that right now at all. But the training programs continue in an adjusted capacity.
That's really amazing. That I mean, I love that these are skills that are not going to go out of style, or that there's going to be a lack of need for.
Right. So then that's kind of the point.
Hmm.
There's a lot of ways that you could generate revenue with 100 people or whatever, but really at the heart of our mission is that it needs to provide a marketable skill,
Hmm.
and it needs to, obviously it needs to help generate money, but there's some organizations that they have training programs like this, but they're not nearly as advanced and evolved as ours are.
Uh huh.
Uh, and really, we've done a lot of things through the years. You have to adapt and change and evolve with the time. So, throughout our history, years ago, we had like a telethon, we had a cookie factory, a T-shirt factory. I don't know if you remember, but back in the '80s, there was this surfacing material called River Rock or
Oh
Futurist.
yeah. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So we used to do that. River Rock was a Habilitat company, actually.
Oh, no way.
But as time goes on, things evolve, and that's kind of a antiquated technology now, so we don't
Hmm.
do that anymore. But the point I'm trying to make is that we evolve with the times, and
Hmm.
we train our people. Hopefully, we're targeting to train them with skills like you just said,
Yeah.
that will always be in demand. So, fences, we do construction, we do remodeling, framing, tile work, you name it. Basically anything except major plumbing or electrical. We don't do that stuff. But we do have an A-level contractor's license, so a general contractor's license, the highest level that you can have. And we have trained staff that run and teach, they're vocational trainers that are paid staff that train people in these different trades. And then, being that we've been around for like 50 years, we can always get somebody a job if they complete the training. And Habilitat is, I think, if I'm not mistaken, we're the only program in the state, one of the only in the country. We require our graduates to have gainful employment at a living wage and stable housing prior to leaving our program. So it's a requirement, actually, not an expectation. It's a requirement. You can't graduate from Habilitat unless you have a job that will support you and or your family if you have one, and a safe, stable place to live.
I love that.
Since
Yeah.
about 65% of our population were homeless prior to coming to us, that's a really big deal.
Yeah.
It's not an easy thing to accomplish. It takes us a couple years. Our program is about 28 months long, residential.
Wow.
Yeah, when the vast majority of programs in the country are about 30 days. So, obviously we can accomplish a whole lot more in 28 to 30 months than anybody
Right.
in 30 days, right? So, yeah.
And I know Habilitat, you said, has been around for 50 years. How long have you been involved with Habilitat?
So, I originally came to Habilitat I'm going to date myself now, in 1986. I had just dropped out of high school, and I actually came here from the mainland and went through the whole program, graduated, went to the university here, worked at the mall, and did real well. And then against Habilitat's advice, I went back to my home state of Texas and just got in a whole lot of trouble and ended up coming back here to Hawaii in the early 90s, just a couple years after I graduated. And I ended up getting in a lot of trouble here. I'm a former heroin addict,
Wow.
a homeless person, and a formerly incarcerated person. So I came back to the program and decided, well, if you can't beat them, you might as well join them. I had literally been through 14 other treatment programs, and I actually had to do Habilitat twice.
Wow.
The second time around, I just decided if you never leave, you never have to come back, right? So I was very lucky that I was there when the founders were still doing the training. I was training actually when our founder, Vinny Marino, passed away, and then his wife, Vicky, took over. And then she completed my training, and unfortunately, she passed away about 2 years later. And then I became the executive, I'm sorry, I became the program director. And I did that for 16 years. So basically, I did the program administration, I trained the counselors, and set up all the curriculums for treatment and all those things. And then in 2000, I believe it was 2015, the longtime executive director retired, and I took over the helm of the organization and have been the executive since then. So it's been
Unbelievable.
24 years straight that I have been with Habilitat.
What a tremendous story. I think it's, I mean, we talked to so many different people in charge of organizations, but to see you pretty much grew up in the organization, and that probably explains why you're so passionate about it. And just hearing the way you talk about it, it's like you know this inside and out, and it's not just something that you've memorized, like this is our protocols and our mission. Like you feel like it comes across that you lived it, and it
Exactly.
obviously you have
Yeah.
through
So
all of your. Go
go
ahead.
ahead. I was going to say for us, it's not really a program; it's more of a lifestyle, really.
Hmm.
And I mean, the program provided me with an avenue to success. And I'm not just talking about financial success, internal success, family success,
Yeah.
relationship success. The whole well-rounded person kind of success. So yes, I'm very grateful to Habilitat. I definitely wouldn't be a free man. I would probably be dead or incarcerated if it wasn't for the program. So yes, this is what I've been doing my whole adult life. I love what we do. I'm blessed to be able to earn a living doing something that I love, and it's making a difference in other people's lives. So that's a big deal for me, obviously.
We have a long format version of the podcast where we talk more about people's personal lives. I think you would be fascinating to talk to, and I would love for you to come on to that if you're willing. But
Without a doubt, yeah.
awesome, thanks. I gotta ask, in your 20 plus years of being there, is there any story or experience that stands out to you the most that just kind of you always fondly look back at, or
Well, in all honesty, there have been many.
yeah.
I think probably the most impactful things that keep me motivated and inspired to do what we do. Um, there's a couple actually, but there was a gentleman that came to us. I got a call from a very prominent judge asking if I would take a chance. We don't take Class A felons. We don't take people who, sex offenders, murderers, rapists. We don't accept those people. But I got a call from a very prominent judge who I won't mention names to protect his anonymity, but he asked me if we would be willing to take a chance on somebody who had been convicted of manslaughter. And I said, "Ooh, I don't know about that. I would have to know the circumstances." And he explained the circumstances. Basically, the gentleman had been in Waikiki. Somebody had attacked him. He defended himself, and the individual that attacked him hit the ground, hit his head, and ended up losing his life because of it. And this gentleman was convicted of manslaughter, and he had spent 7 or 8 years in the penitentiary. And the judge was asking if we would accept him on parole, kind of as not as a favor, but as an exception, if you will.
Mm.
And we got the team together and decided, okay, we'll take a chance on a guy if he's motivated, if he meets the criteria for acceptance and whatever. And we ended up bringing him in, and he was a knucklehead, and it took us a long time to get through to him. But the long story short is, as he paced himself through our program, he started to realize that he had potential, and he started to believe in his own potential, and he started to listen to us, and he let us shape him and mold him into the best version possible.
Mm.
And he ended up graduating from our program, and he ended up working for us for several years. and was an excellent trainer. He ended up doing vocational training with us. Everybody loved him. Everybody looked up to him. And he spent a few years with us, and then he moved on. And he's still doing very good today. So it's things like that that really resonate with our mission. There was another instance, in fact, more recently, we had a young lady who had been through. She was 28 years old. She'd been through 25 short-term treatment programs.
Wow.
She had lost her child. Her child was like 5 years old at the time or whatever, had lost her child. Luckily her parents had stepped in to take the child or whatever, but she'd tried everything to no avail. And I'm talking about programs all over the country, not just here in Hawaii. And then she eventually came to us, and through the process, we ended up turning her completely around. She just got her son back
Oh,
and lives in
great.
Kaneohe with her son now. And now she works for us. She's an employee with us. And, she's what, 4 years clean and sober now and taking care of her child. And so those kind of stories are really the ones that resonate the most with me. When you take somebody that
Yeah.
everybody's pretty much given up on, and the families don't know what to do. The other programs are tired of dealing with it. The court systems are finished working with them. They're done washing their hands, and then they send them to us, and we're able to turn them around. There's something very, very honorable and very satisfying about being the last house on the block. We're
Yeah.
the last hope or whatever. So yeah, and there's other stories, but those are the two that really stand out because it was a complete 180-degree turnaround from somebody that basically society had just given up on them, and we turned them into champions, into winners, into contributors. They're part of the community. They're paying their taxes. They're helping their neighbors. They're good citizens now. And I think that's a testament to our training programs. Habilitat's not for everybody. We don't claim to be the panacea or it doesn't work for everybody. It's not one size fits all,
Right.
but we certainly do really good work with people who failed at everything else. So yeah, that's kind of the stories that stick in my mind.
Man, I'm sure that there's so many, and it would be really cool to hear more of these stories. But
Sure.
and I think maybe we could talk about that, and when we have you on for our long format podcast. But I want to give you a chance to tell our listeners how they could help, because I'm sure there's a lot who are listening who are connecting and resonating with your mission and what you're trying to accomplish here, and they probably want to know, like, well, especially given the circumstance that your organization is in now, what can you use some help with? How can they reach out and support?
Good, very good question, and I've got kind of a multi-phased answer to this. First of all, a lot of people don't realize, but the CARES Act that was just passed has basically made it possible for normal citizens to make tax-deductible contributions. What had happened when they changed the tax codes, it kind of made tax-deductible donations to nonprofits almost irrelevant because of the new the new exemption levels or whatever. But the
Oh,
CARES Act has actually suspended that so that if whatever you give to a nonprofit, 501c3, you can now write that off your taxes. So number one, we're in kind of dire straits here for operating funds, basically. We don't have contracts with the state and federal government, even the city government. So we have to earn it. So the number one way that somebody could help us is to go to our website, and there's a link on there on how to donate. Our website is habilitat.com, www.habilitat.com. We're also on Facebook and Instagram, and you can follow us there. And there are different opportunities to assist us there. We recently set up a Amazon Prime wish list account for Habilitat
oh,
that has, we were struggling to get toilet paper.
oh
We were
yeah.
we were nearly out of toothpaste and things like that. And then we sent out a bulletin to all of our supporters, and then the following week we started getting, a package of toilet paper, a package of toothpaste or soap bars or whatever. So all of that stuff helps us.
Oh, awesome.
Right now, luckily we own our property, so there's no debt. Habilitat doesn't have any debt, so we don't have to pay rent, but or a mortgage payment. But you can imagine we have an acre and a half property with multiple buildings. Our electric bill is $5,000 a
Oh my
month.
gosh.
Yeah. So, and we
Wow.
reached out to Hawaiian Electric and said, hey, can we defer this for a little while? Not, don't forgive it, but just defer it for a while until we can get back to work. And unfortunately, he said, well, we think you're in good shape. So
Oh my.
they weren't interested in trying to help us with that. So we got to keep the lights on.
Yeah.
There's a lot of other organizations. The Hawaii Food Bank is a lifesaver. These folks are truly, they're angels on earth here. They have helped us with food, so we're not going to go hungry. We have plenty of food. We started preparing back in February early February when
Oh,
all this
good.
was becoming known or whatever. So we have food, but we are still struggling to pay the electric bill, the gas
Hmm.
bill, and those kind of things. So, if anybody wants to help us, you can send a check to Habilitat. You could call our office at 235-3691 and just say, hey, I'd like to make a contribution. You can send us products that we can use. We actually had a gentleman yesterday call and said he's going to support us. He's going to give us stock.
Oh,
Yeah, so it was for him. It was beneficial. Rather than giving cash, he can give the stock, and he actually ends up exempt from the capital gains on the stock,
mm,
and he benefits, and he ends up helping Habilitat as well.
that's
We've
super
had people in the
creative.
past donate, even property, if they need a tax break or if it makes sense for them to do that. The problem and the tough part of this is, everybody's struggling right
Yeah.
now, right? So it's very difficult for us to do major campaigns saying, give us money when they're at home trying to feed their children as well.
Hmm.
But there are some people that are in a position to help organizations like ours. And for those people, we welcome any kind of help that you're willing to give. Under normal circumstances, if somebody supports us, we would invite them out for a tour and to feed them lunch from our culinary program. Obviously, that's not possible right now. But certainly, anybody that wants to learn more about us when this is all said and done, we would welcome you to come to Habilitat, take a tour, hear our presentation. We'll feed you lunch, and I've yet to have anybody come and take the tour that didn't walk away very impressed with what we do. So Facebook, Instagram, our website. You can call us 235-3691. You can reach out to me if you'd like to learn more about this. You can reach out to me at the same number. You can reach me via email, my first initial J, last name Nash, J Nash at habilitat.com. And I will respond to each and every person that reaches out to us.
That is awesome. I'm so glad that you had the time to sit down and chat with us. I'm personally really blown away by all that you and all that your organization is doing. And I'm so glad that I learned about it because, as I mentioned, I only knew about the Christmas trees up until this point. And I love what your program is doing. I love your story, and I can't wait to hear more about it when we have you on the podcast.
Sure.
And I think a lot of people will have plenty of ways to reach you and help support what you're doing there at Habilitat. But I want to thank you again for all of your work for our community, for our people, and also for taking the time to talk to us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for your interest.